Okay, we finished whatever it was we were studying last week. And just as an interim, I think I've got about 3 weeks of material here from a sermon that I have preached a few times, but I've expanded a little bit for. I'd never really, well, I liked it as I like it better as a Bible class than a sermon. I'll put it that way. So a little bit of modification here and there. We're going to look at what is truth. Because in John chapter 18, verse 37 through 38, when Jesus was on trial before Pilate, the Roman governor, Pilate said to him, "So you are a king?" And it's got a question mark after it, and I think it might serve better if it was a question mark with an exclamation mark. It's a question, but I think it might be more directed to Jesus as an insult. Like, "So you're a king?" Because remember, he had been on trial before the high priests, and he had been beaten a few times and run all over Jerusalem. So here, he looks at him, and he's probably battered, bruised, bleeding. He's wearing perhaps that purple cape or robe, probably still holding the little reed as a scepter and a crown of thorns. And he looks at him, and the words, "So you are a king?" It's like you could hear the sarcasm in it. Jesus answered, "You say that I am a king." Because it just stating that, he realizes that there's something. Pilate realizes there's something, but "So you are a king?" He said, "Well, you're saying I'm a king. You're asking me. You're using it sarcastically, but you're recognizing it to a degree. For this purpose I was born, and for this purpose I have come into the world." Okay? Now the next little part, the English Standard Version has a dash, "to bear witness to the truth." So for what purpose was he born? And for what purpose did he come into this world?
To save the world.
To save. To die and save.
Save us from our sins.
For eternal home.
Okay? Have you got it pulled up?
Mm-hmm.
Look at it.
You've come into the world to bear witness to the truth. Everyone who is the
Okay,
truth listens to my voice.
Oh. So for what purpose was he born, and for what purpose did he come into this world?
Bear witness to the truth.
To bear witness to the truth. See how, yeah. Okay, what were your answers right off? To save the world. To die for us. All this. But right there, to bear witness to the truth. The truth. And we're going to talk about truth in an objective manner in just a little while. So for this purpose I was born, and we want to say, oh, it was to be a king, right? Was that the truth he's talking about here? Well, that's a part of it. That he came to be a king, but he didn't come to be a king in an earthly sense. What did he say later on, or before that? Before, later on, this is the last day. What had he said before that? My kingdom is not of this world. If my kingdom were of this world, then would my servants fight. But well, maybe it was in the same context here. But my kingdom's not of this world. Now, what does that do to the people who believe that Jesus is going to come back and reign for 1,000 years here upon this earth? That's just a throw out question there. if my kingdom is not of this world, what are they looking for and what are they desiring? What are they preaching? What are they teaching? That he's going to have a kingdom like the kingdoms of this world. He says that's not what it's about. There's a higher truth. There's a greater truth out here. That's not, and here, for this purpose I was born. Didn't he exist before he was
Amen.
born?
Amen.
He sure did. But he had to come here as a human being. To do what? To bear witness to the truth. Okay? And for this purpose I have come into the world. To bear witness to the truth. That's what it's all about. See how central truth is to everything that Jesus was about and is about? And we'll talk more about that later. Then, Jesus says, everyone who is of the truth listens to my voice. Now, how critical is that? How critical is that?
Very.
And again, and I'm not trying to thump on you or anything, but again, just going back to that question, what was the purpose? Well, the voice of Jesus here is saying to bear witness to the truth. And sometimes, it's like Romans chapter 1, verse 16 and 17. Paul says, "For I'm not ashamed of the gospel of Christ, for it is the power of God unto salvation for everyone who believes." And I ask people, well, what then is the power of salvation? I get answers like prayer, or well, just do good, whatever. No, the gospel is the power of God unto salvation. And sometimes we get to running on things and we just need to draw back and look at what is right there. So, Jesus says these things, okay? You're saying that I'm a king, even though you're saying it sarcastically, but for this purpose I was born, and for this purpose I've come into the world, to bear witness to the truth. Everyone who is of the truth listens to my voice. Well, was Pilate listening to him? No.
Well, I don't know whether he's listening. He heard him, and that's about
He
it.
heard him, but he wasn't listening to the voice, right? So, Pilate said to him, "What is truth?" Now, do you think he was asking in the sense that we're asking, that I'm asking, that this question up here is asking, what is truth?
Probably not.
No. Again, he's probably saying it sarcastically. What is truth?
What is the truth?
What's truth? You got your truth, I got my truth. Caesar has his truth. What is truth? What difference does truth make? And I think that we ought to see that truth makes a lot of difference, especially to us as disciples of Jesus Christ. So let's look at some things that the Bible teaches about truth. And this isn't going to be exhaustive. It's going to be kind of short. And I think I can stretch it into 3 lessons. Okay? It's going to be kind of short, but it's going to give us an idea of what God thinks about truth, and then what the truth of the matter is, and then our relationship to truth, okay, or the truth. So, the Bible teaches us that truth is objective. Now, what does that mean when they say something is objective?
The goal.
It's a goal. What if I say truth is subjective?
It's in the eyes and the mind of the beholder.
Yeah, beauty is in the eye of the beholder, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there you go. It's whatever a person thinks is truth. No, the Bible teaches us that truth is objective. That means that there is a real truth that exists, and it is separate and apart from everything else in this world.
Could you say objective? Another word for definition of objective would be unbiased viewpoint?
No, Not at all. It is God's bias. It is Christ's bias. Because God can be biased. And but God understands, and if God created us and created this universe, then He knows exactly why He created this world and all. So is there a bias with God? Well, sure. Sure, God is biased. He wants His will to be done. Okay? But is His will subjective? Did He do it, the terms that I learned long ago, arbitrary and capricious? Was God arbitrary? In other words, does God say that it is wrong to murder just because He doesn't like murder? Or is there an objective truth behind it, why that's wrong?
Objective truth.
There's an objective truth. There's a reason why. Why? Because life is important. So it's wrong to take a life unless what?
It's a danger to your life.
You have a very good reason for doing it. And God gives us the reasons for doing it. Self-defense is one of those. Okay? War. Okay? In time of war, if you're defending your country or whatever, the soldier may not be guilty of murder if he kills an enemy soldier, but yet the leaders, if they have caused this war in a wrong way, they are guilty. So there are things, and let me go down through here. There's something I want to bring out with it, but it's kind of like truth can come to us in many ways, but still it's the same truth. It's based on the same premise, right? Next week when we get into a chart, remember, for something to be contradictory, there has to be a not in it. All right? Try to use, okay. The sky is blue. Is that true or is that false?
Sometimes.
Sometimes it can be gray.
Sometimes it is. But if we're looking at the sky and the sky is blue, and well, yeah, I guess that's still pretty good. And I say, well, the sky is blue, and you say the sky is not blue. Then there you have a contradiction. Now there can be degrees in the contradiction. No, that sky is not blue. That sky is azure. What's azure?
It's another color of blue.
Another shade of blue. So there's shadings of it. But when you get into, and just go back, it is wrong to murder. It is not wrong to murder. Well, that's contradictory, right? So what you have to do is go back and make sure that you have your definition set out. What is murder?
Yes, that's it.
See, when you start. And murder is shedding innocent blood. What about shedding guilty blood?
That's punishment.
That's punishment, and the Bible's okay with that. Okay. So make sure that you define your terms when you're looking for truth to make sure that it is objective. How many people argue about things just that are the shades of differences? You're agreeing, but it's just varying degrees of things. You know, well, is that a lie or is that just a little white lie? Well, what makes the difference? If it's a lie, it's a lie. Whether it's, you know, shaded or whether it's, oh, I said that because I didn't want to hurt their feelings. Okay, but what if it's something they needed to know? How embarrassing is it for you guys, okay, to tell another guy, hey, your fly's open?
Somebody forgot to tell me this one, I did. I noticed closed it when we was praying.
Oh, there you go. Oh, well, see,
There's continuing circumstances, if your pants overlap, you don't know that.
but there you go. There it is. You know, and well, like he said, oh, why didn't you tell me my fly was open? That caused me great embarrassment,
Well,
as
it didn't
John
embarrass
Wayne
me,
would say.
but I figured if it was open, somebody would have said something, but when I bent over to pray this for it,
Okay, but that is, and it's like, gee, why are you looking, you know, or this or that, you know, it's kind of one of those embarrassing situations, but, you know, I've come to find that it's best to avoid a lot of embarrassment for the individual if you just kind of, hey, you know, flies open. See, now she's not gonna say that.
That's like
Is that
George
right
Robertson was doing the Lord's Supper one day, and he walked up by me, and I said, George, your fly's open. And he liked to drop the tray.
Yeah, there's a time and a place. But it is. But see, it's the truth. I don't want to say it because it embarrassed them, but what embarrassment is there maybe later
Right.
that's going to come along, see? Okay? Now, I'm sure you ladies have things that you talk about, like, hey, your dress is tucked in up there. They're showing everything, you know? Well, yeah, it's,
I had that happen once when I was lecturing to some students. I sat down on a desk and I noticed it was open and they had this pull down screen that covered me from quite a ways. So I just said, excuse me a second, I'm out of the screen, zipped up, get back out, and all the guys were laughing and said, if you haven't had that happen, you're all lying.
yeah. And it does
we just
happen.
moved
but,
on.
yeah.
We
So,
had a lady come to school one day and it was cold and she had her coat tucked in, but her dress was tucked in.
mhm.
Everything was down and then she didn't know it and thankfully it was before school.
Yeah.
You know.
I had
had
rather
to tell
for,
her.
yeah, I'd rather for somebody to tell me though, is to let me go on without
Mhm.
knowing it.
Yeah. So, you know, and lots of times people will ask questions, you know, like, do you like this certain thing? Well, yeah, I like it. And you don't. Well, then, you know, I don't want to hurt their feelings, you know. I guess there are ways to address it, but we've got to be careful that we just don't give people false ideas. Okay, I'll give you a situation. Something happened in a congregation one time. They suggested that do something, you know, and they were talking to me about it, and I made a comment, not one way or the other about it. Okay? And they took that to mean, okay, Fred's okay with this. Fred's up with this. And it wasn't really the case. I had some problems with what was being suggested. But what I should have done was just, at the time, said, well, you know, hold on, let's look at this, let's talk about this a little bit, and I didn't. Well, you know what, that caused some problems down the road, because, you know, if you take one step, you're gonna take 3 steps.
Yeah, it takes 3 to cover it up, that's true.
Yeah. Okay. Karen, what
Never
was?
mind, that's okay. I forgot what I was gonna say.
That's wonderful.
Uh-oh, that probably reminded her
You
right
need to go, I
there.
love you, when you say stuff like that. And she'll go, I don't think so.
Yeah. Okay, the Bible teaches us that truth is objective. The word truth is used 150 times in the New Testament. That must be pretty important then, because the New Testament really isn't that big, but there's a lot of talk about truth, and it comes from the Greek word ALETHEIA. You ever know women named something like that, ALETHEIA? Just like grace, you know, but it's a word that comes in. Most of you have heard of Vine's dictionary. It's fairly good dictionary of New Testament words, Old Testament words too sometimes. But when Vine is defining it, he quotes a guy by the name of Kramer, who was a scholar from way back. Says truth is used objectively, signifying the reality lying at the basis of an appearance, the manifested veritable essence of a matter. Okay? So, again, the reality lying at the basis of an appearance. What happened? 5 people see an accident, right? And you got how many different?
Opinions.
5 different versions.
5 versions of it, but each of those 5 versions can be the truth.
Part of the truth.
And that's typically somebody investigating an accident that then put all 5 together and come out with the truth. Hey, listen, that's what we do with Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John.
Mhm.
That's what I've learned. You know, I've got
Their perspectives, like 4 different corners of the same.
Each covers a different part, but they all work together and they
Right.
confirm everything.
It's basically the same thing, but if you break it down, they're looking at 4, or addressing 4 different audiences. And especially John is addressing Christians outside of those early years. So you put it all together and you get a clearer picture of what is going on. So there is the objective that's here, this happened. Now, why did that happen? How did that happen? Well, you're going to look at what lies on the other side of that appearance. What is the basis of that appearance? But it says the manifested veritable essence of a matter. And there, what you see is what you get, right? So keep things in perspective. So what I'm trying to bring out in this, John 14:6, Jesus said, I am the way, the life, and I'm the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. So when Jesus says he is the truth, what is he saying?
He's saying
the
he's the
objective.
Word.
Okay.
He's the objective of everything that God has planned from the beginning.
Yeah, if you want to find out what the truth is all about, what the truth, the essence of the truth, or here, the reality lying at the basis of an appearance. If you want to get to that core, look to him. All right? John 1:1-3. And John, again, John is writing, Matthew, Mark, and Luke write kind of, let me guesstimate. I would say they're writing in the 40s. Jesus died in the 30s. They're probably writing in the 40s, maybe late 30s, their gospel accounts. But John, I believe John is writing the gospel account closer to AD 70. Maybe 25 to 30 years later, and he's not writing it to Jews like Matthew is, using a lot of Jewish terminology and such to convert Jews to Christ. He's not speaking about power like Mark, who's preaching to the Romans and trying to convert them, and not to the Greeks with a lot of historical, just put everything in perspective, make sure it's chronologically correct, like Luke, because he's speaking mainly to the Gentiles. You've got John speaking to Christians, and he wants to reinforce their faith. He wants to show them why all of this is coming in, has come into our world. All right? John says, John 1, verses 1-3, in the beginning was the Word. And the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was in the beginning with God. All things were made through him, and without him was not anything made that was made. And then you can go on down to verse 14, and the Word became flesh and dwelt among us, and we beheld his glory, the glory as of the only begotten of the Father. So there you go back to what Jesus was talking to Pilate. And Pilate says, so you are a king. And he says, here's my purpose. Here's the purpose why I was born. Here's the purpose why I've come into this world, to testify to the truth. The truth about God, the truth about this world, that it's a fallen world, that sin has taken over, that the devil is, Satan is in a leadership role. Most people are following him. There's something better. God has something greater planned. All of that's a part of that truth that Jesus gives a reality to in his birth, but mainly in his life, his death, his burial, his resurrection, that gospel account. Now, modern philosophy would have you believe that you cannot know anything for certain, that all truth is subjective and relative. All right? Well, I'll tell you what. You think about that. We'll get into it next week, because it's already 11:01. But here's something I think I've related it to y'all before. If not, it's good to repeat anyway. Old preacher said that philosophy is a blind man in a dark room looking for a black cat that isn't there. Now that's vain philosophy. When a philosopher starts in this world trying to find ultimate truth, then that's exactly what it is. A blind man in a dark room looking for a black cat that isn't there. You cannot start in this world and find objective, ultimate truth. You have to get in the light that has been given to us by God in his Word, because being outside of this world, God is able to tell us, here's why you are. Here's why the world is like it is. Here's what I'm doing to try to correct. Here's how it went bad. Here's how I'm trying to correct it. Okay. If none of that makes any sense to you, it's because,
Makes a lot of sense.
it's because, well, but as we draw some things together, so we're going to show more of an importance to us. But, well, we got one slide basically done.
Nearly.
Nearly. Okay, we'll start up with this then next week. Thank you so very much.